Hi there, Gerhard Bloom here, once again, looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. So I like to call this particular piece, Rioters and Looters Will Be Shot. It's apropos, I think, in light of the Roe v. Wade decision. I don't want to get too involved with the decision. I've spoken of it previously. In the wake of the leaked decision, or the thoughts, the musings, and the potential overthrow of Roe v. Wade. There were protests outside the homes of several Supreme Court justices, shouting, intimidations, and threats. And as I mentioned before, the Supreme Court is supposed to be absolutely immune from political protest and political influence. This is because they have absolutely no legal authority to legislate, right? You can protest legislatures, you can protest politicians, and in fact, in liberal democracies, you're encouraged to exercise your right to free speech, and you're certainly allowed to express your anger and outrage at politicians. This is not the case with Supreme Court justices, right? Their sole duty is to ensure that whatever legislation is before the court is consistent with the Constitution. That's it. They don't get to decide on the basis of whether they like the decision or they like the law or not. As private citizens, they get to make their own determination and vote at the ballot box like everybody else. But at any rate, it didn't stop with these protests outside the homes of Supreme Court justices, which, by the way, is illegal. It is illegal. But of course, the Biden Justice Department, no, nothing to see here, folks, right? Didn't do anything about it. And several Democratic politicians actively encouraged this. Well, as tempers rose, some deluded leftists drove across the entire country with the sole aim of killing Justice Kavanaugh, right? And I had mentioned before this incident even happened that, somebody may very well have made this calculus. You remove a justice or two and you may change the outcome of the vote, right? Absolutely shameful. So in light of the Roe decision, people's hair have burst into flames, right? This is canceling women, denying women's right to choose. Absolute nonsense. This is not the case. The Supreme Court hasn't outlawed abortion, nor actually did it make it legal, right? The Supreme Court said, in all honesty, this is not our decision to determine. It's up to the legislatures in various states across the United States. This is what happens in a republic, right? The individual states get to decide their laws for themselves on the basis of their conscience. You want late-term abortions right up till the moment of birth, when you could deliver this child by cesarean section and perfectly healthy baby, and you decide, no, you're going to end this baby's life. Well, if you want that, you move to California. You don't want that, you move to a state that has stricter legislation. And as it happens, the vast majority of the American public is in favor of early-term abortions and not in favor of late-term abortions. And with respect to the rape and incest, that accounts for about 1% of pregnancies. And the vast majority of Americans are in favor of abortion, early abortion, under those circumstances. So this is all nonsense. I understand why deeply religious people would be against abortions in virtually all circumstances. Even for them, I would be hard pressed to find a significant minority of people who would deny abortion in the case of rape or incest, right? But even if there is such a constituency, it certainly wouldn't be enough to force its way into law across the United States. So this is nonsense. So I don't know where this fallout is going to lead. It has already, oh, and I mentioned previously, you know, pregnancy centers that are designed and are serving the community to help women who are in trouble, right? They're pregnant and they want advice and support and assistance in dealing with their pregnancies. Nobody is compelling them to go to these pregnancy centers, and nobody is being forced to have their baby against their will. These women are freely deciding to speak to people at these pregnancy centers. Well, these pregnancy centers have been attacked, subject to arson attack, graffiti, smashed windows, and threats. This is ugly. It's ugly and it needs to stop. Well, carrying on with the violence here, there have been already reports of rioting. The intelligence, the Justice Department has released intelligence assessments that suggest that rioting may continue, terrorist attacks, and yes, you attack pregnancy centers, and threats have been made against churches, right? Attacks against churches, attacks against pregnancy centers. Well, violent action to further a political cause is by definition terrorism, and we can expect more of it. I doubt very much this will lead to the threshold of those inexcusable BLM riots. So the lead thesis of this particular video is rioters and looters shall be shot. Now, let me make myself very clear here. I am not talking about snipers hidden on rooftops, shooting people without warning. No. In the first instance, overwhelming police force should intervene and stop a riot before it starts. Several analyses of the LA riots, which were absolutely catastrophic for the city, have pinpointed the precise moment when the city lost control, right? The authorities lost control of the city. They surrendered key intersections. They backed off when what they should have done is shown a absolute degree of force and prevented absolutely awful damage. One heartening moment in that was a Korean grocery store defending its property and the lives of people there with weapons. Of course, you know, leftists want to take away your right to defend your property and your lives. Well, fortunately, these Koreans had weapons and they were using them. Oh, the black lives. I don't care about black lives. I don't just judge human worth on the basis of race. I do not. If you are attacking a store owner and with the intent to destroy his property, you got a bullet coming to you, and I don't care what color you are. And just so you know, I'm not biased in this regard. Reginald Denny, the truck driver that was pulled out of his car and helpless on the ground when some murderous thug took a brick and smashed it into his head. And Reginald Denny suffered absolutely terrible life-altering injuries as a result of this. Well, it was a black woman that saved Reginald Denny's life, and she has my utmost admiration. She showed real courage and real moral fiber. The basic duty of government: paving roads? No. Collecting garbage? No. Delivering mail? No. It's to protect the lives and property of its citizens. And billions of dollars of damage was done during these BLM riots. A couple of dozen people were killed during these BLM riots. people marauded into black communities, reducing stores and neighborhoods to absolute rubble. And the police retreated. The police retreated. The vision I imagine is that the mayor gets on the radio and says rioters and looters will be shot. And at the scene of the riot, as it's taking place, you have the National Guard in military trucks driving up to the scene and jumping off the trucks with the army boots, crunching on the ground, forming up with their weapons. The chief of police announces rioters and looters will be shot. You have 5 minutes to disperse. And then guess what? You shoot the rioters and you shoot the looters. And no, you don't aim at the big toe on their left foot. You aim for the visible mass. You don't fire warning shots. Warning shots can ricochet. You shoot at the visible mass. Won't innocent people be killed? Or perhaps you didn't hear me. I'm talking about you shoot rioters and looters. They're hardly innocent, right? It's not a bus of school kids getting lost on the way and they're destroying a neighborhood. No. These are adults. And yes, some may die. Some may die. But they are hardly innocent. And do you recall me just mentioning a couple of dozen people killed in the LA riot, or in the BLM riots? These people who get shot will have it coming. And no, this isn't racist, because there are plenty of white people engaged in these riots. I have seen videos of black store owners looking at the rubble that used to be their businesses and tell you, the public, how they can't understand how it is that white kids can come to their neighborhoods and turn it to rubble and then go back to their comfortable homes. And I don't understand that either. I absolutely don't understand that. It's inexcusable. And, oh, you shoot these people, well, won't there be rioting? Well, rinse, wash, and repeat. Rioters and looters will be shot. And I don't care what side of the political spectrum, right? And I don't care what cause you're advocating. I don't care if it's BLM with this fictitious nonsense about systemic oppression. I don't care if it was for saving baby whales or seals. I don't care. You don't get to riot and loot. You get to peacefully protest. Some idiot on CNN rhetorically asked, where does it say protests have to be peaceful? Well, it actually says that in the Constitution of the United States. You have the right to peacefully assemble. Now, I may offend some people with this particular video. I'm deeply worried. No, I'm not at all worried. I'm not at all worried. The basic duty of government is to secure the lives and property of its citizens. And acquiescing to terrorism, acquiescing to rioting and looting, it's just inexcusable. Donald Trump should have invoked the Insurrection Act. I think he was fearful that people would call him a fascist or a dictator. Well, they called him a fascist and a dictator anyways, and billions of dollars and property was ruined. And people say, oh, well, property, that can be replaced. Well, in the inner city, insurance rates are extremely high. Racism? No, it's not racism. Why? Because of riots. Riots, looting, theft, insurance rates are higher. So a great many of the properties that were destroyed in the inner city were uninsured. So maybe other people can rebuild this property, but often, in fact, that doesn't happen. Economists have looked at the impact of the race riots in the 1960s. The race riots in the 1960s caused decades of economic decline, right? It put the black community back decades. Why? Because people who had money left, and they are no longer members of the tax base. Businesses left. You hear of food deserts in the inner city. Well, food deserts in the inner city are a product of previous rioting and looting, right? People were not willing to take the risk of opening up a grocery store in the inner city. So you've got little old ladies that have no way of getting groceries near them. They can't walk to a grocery store because they aren't there. And the grocery stores that do exist, you know, like those Korean grocery stores, they've been accused for decades of price gouging, because they cost, the prices in these stores cost more than you can get at one of the big box stores. Economists have looked at this as well. Yes, the prices in these stores are higher, but the profit rates are lower, right? Why? Well, one reason is the economy of scale, right? The larger sellers can buy larger shipments and they save money. But a significant factor is those lower operating costs, right? The insurance rates, less loss from thefts. And no, it's not racist to point it out. Theft and crime in the inner city is much higher than in the suburbs. So this is a problem. And if these advocates for abortion start rioting and looting, well, I'll hope you watch the video and you have a solution to this particular problem. I thank you very much for your time. I do hope you'll check out my book, Deconstructing Social Justice. It's available on Amazon. Not important because I wrote it. I wrote it because the issues are important. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.